everyone, it's Kim and welcome back to Bookmarks and Breadsticks. Welcome back to Bookmarks and Breadsticks. This is one of my favorite videos to make and it is anticipated releases I'm excited for coming out in June, July, August, and September. There's only a couple June books on here, and by the time this video comes out, they'll already be on shelves. So consider them recent releases plus Q3, which is July, August, and September. If you're new to my channel, I specialize in nonfiction, specifically in culinary and foodie nonfiction. So the books I'm bringing you today are broken out into a couple of categories. One being gastronomy history, another being culinary biographies and memoirs from the chef or restaurant space, and another section is called restaurant and industry. So these are genre titles that if you were filtering under Amazon, you could find these books. And while I'm referencing these books and did do my research on Amazon, I actually recommend that you shop and purchase your books through bookshop.org, if not from your local bookstore. So if you don't know what bookshop.org is, and this is not paid or sponsored, but bookshop.org is a nonprofit platform that donates 10% of all of its proceeds to independent bookstores throughout the United States. On top of that, I do have affiliate links, so I will receive a small commission. But the more important thing is that we need to continue to support our small bookstores. Right now, Amazon, 65% of books purchased globally are going through Amazon. And the more this becomes a monopoly, just like we see large publishing houses consolidating and purchasing smaller imprints, the less opportunity you'll have for publishers, writers, and authors, and there's going to be a lack of diversity in the space. So if you can't, the first thing you should do is ask if your local bookstore can order a book for you to pick up. But if you don't want to do that, you can order your books through bookshop.org and actually identify which small bookstore you want your portion of the proceeds to go towards. So right now, mybookshop.org is set up with Open Books, which is a nonprofit in Chicago that sells predominantly used books and uses the funds to create literacy programs for the youth and students throughout the area. Anyway, I will link all of these books and my Bookmarks and Breadsticks bookshop.org page down below, and I hope you consider pre-ordering these books and supporting small businesses and independent bookstores. So there are a lot of books on here, I think shy of 20, but more than 15. Let's go ahead and get started, starting with publications coming out in June. These would be considered the recent releases. First up, we have A Dark History of Sugar on shelves June 7th. A Dark History of Sugar focuses upon the role of the slave trade in sugar production and looks beyond it to how the exploitation of the workers didn't end with emancipation. It reveals the sticky truth behind the detrimental impact of sugar's meteoric popularity on the environment and our health. Advertising companies peddle their sugar-laden wares to children with fun cartoon characters, but the reality is not so sweet. This is considered gastronomy history. Next on shelves June 9th is a culinary biography, My Culinary Love Story, How Food and Love Led to a New Life. In a quaint English market town in the 1980s, Pauline Perry finds herself a divorced mother of 2 small children. A chance encounter leads to a new life, one that begins in the most likely of places, a flat above a restaurant. There, she soon realizes her true calling as a culinary explorer, ready to embrace a passion of food that will guide her for life. But cooking isn't the only passion that Pauline discovers. The final June book is Dick Tales or Thank Yous and Sluggings, coming out June 30th. This is a long-awaited book written by Mr. Dick Bradswell, aka Soho cocktail legend, father of the London cocktail revival, the bartender's bartender, cocktail king, creative genius, and some other titles that are attributed to him. Though he would have introduced himself as Dick, or perhaps Rosie Smudge, or Cassandra the Wizard, or Dungeon Master, or... This is not a cocktail book or a bar manual. Dick believed that others were better in writing than he was. Although incomplete and missing his final signature of approval, this book contains the thoughts, sound bites, and many cocktails that were part of his legacy. So I believe I had just finished the culinary or global gastronomy history section for June. So let's move into the July anticipated releases. First up on July 5th, we have Gastronativism, Food, Identity, Politics, Arts and Traditions of the Table, Perspectives on Culinary History. The Italian political right is outraged by halal tortellini and a pork-free lasagna served at the Vatican. In India, Hindu fundamentalists organize attacks on Muslims who sell beef. European anti-immigrant politicians denounce couscous and kebabs. In an era of nationalist and exclusionary movements, food has become a potent symbol of identity. Why has eating become so politically charged? And can the emotions surrounding food be redirected in a healthier direction? I think this is a really interesting conversation, and definitely a book the book made it all the way to my cart to check out to pre-order. I haven't hit it yet because honestly I own far too many books, but I'm very, very interested about this one. Next up on July 12th, Distilled, A Natural History of Spirits. So this is by author Rob DeSalle, and Rob DeSalle has other books similar. So where he's done the history of beer, he's done the history of wine, and now we have a natural history of spirits, excuse me. This volume considers highly alcoholic spirits in the context of evolution, ecology, history, primatology, molecular biology, physiology, neurobiology, chemistry, and even astrophysics. Honestly, like, that is not the most enticing book description. I sometimes wonder who writes this stuff. Jeez. With the help of the illustrator Patricia Wynn, DeSalle and Tattersall address historical and cultural aspects of ingredients, the distillation process, and spirits and their effects. They also call on an international group of colleagues to contribute chapters on brandy, vodka, tequila, whiskey, gin, rum, schnapps, baijiu, grappa, ouzo, and chaka. Okay, that part of the description was at least a little bit more interesting, but like, I think this is where I feel like nonfiction, especially food nonfiction, can get such a bad, not reputation, but it can be such a turnoff, or you can be easily intimidated by it. How would you feel if the first thing you read is this volume considers highly alcoholic spirits in the context of all of these ologies? Like, it can be really intimidating. So I would say I'm interested because I actually don't drink alcohol, but I'm very interested in this world and how it's all made. But probably on the more towards the bottom of my interest list, just because that description was like not the most appealing description I've ever had to read. But moving on, also on shelves July 12th, and this is more in the restaurant food industry, Salmon Wars, The Dark Underbelly of Our Favorite Fish by Catherine Collins. A Pulitzer Prize winning correspondent and a former private investigator deep dive into the murky waters of the international salmon farming industry, exposing the unappetizing truth about fish that is not as good for you as you have been told. Like, see, isn't that a far more interesting description? Like, a private investigator, a Pulitzer Prize winning correspondent, like, this sounds super cool. A decade ago, farmed Atlantic salmon replaced tuna as the most popular fish in North American dinner tables. We are told that the salmon is healthy and environmentally friendly. The reality is disturbingly different. See, like, that is so cool. Like, I want to pre-order that book right away. Also out July 19th, Doctors and Distillers, The Remarkable Medicinal History of Beer, Wine, Spirits, and Cocktails. At last, a definitive guide of the medicinal origins of every bottle behind the bar. This is a cocktail book of the year, if not the decade, written by Amy Stewart, who is the author of The Drunken Botanist and Wicked Plants. See, this is also very interesting to me. Wines and spirits were used for medicinal purposes, and I remember this old, what is it called? Not an idiom, but like wives' tale, like, oh, your child is teething, put like whiskey or gin on their gums. I'm probably picking the wrong alcohol. But like, that all comes from somewhere. And I want to know where these traditions came from, where alcohol was used for medicinal purposes. That's super interesting to me. Also out July 18th, Alaska Herring History. The story of Alaska's herring fisheries and industry. A lot of fish books coming out this quarter. Alaska Herring History is a thoroughly researched, well-documented, and comprehensive chronicle of Alaska's herring fisheries. Author James Makovajak describes the evolution of these fisheries from the late 19th century to the present, including harvest processing markets and sustained yield management considerations. So not the sexiest description, but I do think if you were someone who enjoyed Mark Kurlansky's book Cod, or if you're interested in Catching Hell, the insider story of seafood from ocean to plate that came out in May, or even the book about salmon, this could be a good companion, because I don't know how many of us are actually reading about Alaskan herring, for example. So Another one that I'm interested in, I'm really into seafood. Maybe I need to do like a list of books about fish that you got, or seafood that you guys, let me know in the comments below if you would like a list of like 5 recommended reads if you want to learn about fisheries and the history of fish. Which now that I think about it, I definitely have a book on somewhere else about the Alaskan pollock that I started and need to finish called Billion Dollar Fish that I need to finish. The final book in July on my list is Fishing for Chickens, a Smokies food memoir. This comes out July 15th. Fishing for Chickens is a well-seasoned blend of memoir and cookbook. It offers the perspective of a Bryson City, North Carolina native on a particular portion of the Southern Appalachia, the Smokies. Casada serves up a detailed description of the folkways of food as they existed in the Smokies over the span of 3 generations. Beginning early in the 20th century, fancy-dancy food magazines and self-ordained cuisine. Oh, and then the description cuts off. How strange. That was a run-on sentence that didn't end anywhere. But I will admit I don't know a lot about Appalachian cuisine or the Smokies, so I'm very interested to learn more. And Fishing for Chickens is a funny name. I wonder if they actually fish for chickens in some capacity. I mean, I'm intrigued, right? Next up, moving into August, we have Waiter in Paris, Adventures in the Dark Heart of the City, coming out August 9th. An evocative portrait of the underbelly of contemporary Paris as seen through the eyes of a young waiter scraping out the living in the city of life. A waiter's job is to deceive you. They want you to believe in a luxurious calm because on the other side of the door is hell. Edward Chisholm's spellbinding memoir of his time as a Parisian waiter takes you beneath the surface of one of the most iconic cities of the world and into its glorious underbelly. One of the first nonfiction books I ever read in my, like when I was in high school, was a book called Waiter Rant, and I have always enjoyed the stories and tales from the eyes of a waiter in an established restaurant, so I'm very excited to pick that one up. Next up on shelves August 16th is California Soul, an American epic of cooking and survival. A sharply crafted and unflinchingly honest memoir about gangs, drugs, cooking, and living on the line, both on the streets and in the kitchen, from one of the most exciting stars in the food world today. Chef Keith Corbin has been cooking his entire life. Born on the home turf of the notorious Grape Street Crips in 1980s Watts, Los Angeles, he got his start cooking crack at age 13, becoming so skilled that he was flown across the country to cook for drug operations in other cities. After his criminal enterprise caught up with him, though, Corbin spent years in California's most notorious maximum security prisons, witnessing the resourcefulness of other inmates who made kimchi out of leftover vegetables and tamales from ground-up Fritos. He developed his own culinary palate and ingenuity, creating spreads out of unbearable commissary ingredients and experimenting during his shifts in the prison kitchen. I'm intrigued. Tell me more. Next up, these are 2 books I have mentioned before on previous anticipated reads, but the next one on August 16th is Eating While Black, Food Shaming and Race in America. Psyche A. Williams-Forson is one of our leading thinkers about food in America. In Eating While Black, she offers her knowledge and experience to illuminate how anti-Black racism operates in the practice and culture of eating. She shows how mass media, nutrition science, economics, and public policy drive entrenched opinions among both Black and non-Black Americans on what is considered healthy and right to eat. Distorted views on how and what people eat are pervasive, bolstering the belief that they must be corrected and regulated. What is at stake is nothing less than whether Americans can learn to embrace non-racist understandings and practices in relation to food. The other out on August 9th is Kosher Soul, The Faith and Food Journey of an African-American Jew. This is by Michael Twitty. I am a huge fan of Michael Twitty. If you don't follow him on Instagram, I highly recommend. And I don't want to say too much because it is his memoir. Michael Twitty is a African-American food historian, and I have loved his contributions to the food writing world, the food historian world. He is featured in one of the episodes of High on the Hog. Oh my gosh, like really, really appreciate his voice and presence, and I learn a lot from him. So he actually came out with a book last year all about race. This is another memoir, the fact that he is African-American, gay, and Jewish. So I'm really excited to see how this all intersects. This is a book I have already pre-ordered. I am that excited about it. It's actually, this is the only book on this list that I have pre-ordered. I am that excited and really, really a big fan of Michael Twitty. And then the final book, I only have one for September. It's Our Fermented Lives, a history of how fermented foods have shaped cultures and communities. Oops, let me get the description. Oh no, stop. I need to read the description. Sorry. From craft beers and sourdough bread, I'm so tongue-tied. From craft beers and sourdough bread to kimchi, coffee, tea, and cheese, fermentation is a popular topic in both American... I'm now just making up words. From craft beers and sourdough bread to kimchi, coffee, tea, and cheese, fermentation is a popular topic in both food and health circles. In Our Fermented Lives, food historian and fermenting expert Julia Skinner, how you become a fermenting expert, I don't know, but that's kind of an amazing title. Julia Skinner explores the fascinating roots of a wide range of fermented foods in cultures around the world, with a focus on the many intersections fermented foods have with human history and culture, from the evolution of the microbiome to food preservation techniques, distinctive flavor profiles around the globe, and the building of community. So there you go. Those are all of the Q3 plus a few recent released books in food writing, gastronomy essays, gastronomy history, research and references books that I am super excited to put on your radar and to put on my anticipated TBR. Let me know in the comments below which books stick out to you, and if there's any other books you think I should put on my radar. And if you have no other book recommendations and you're just happy to be here and you made it to the end of the episode, please put a pepper or a chili pepper of some kind down in the comments below. Make sure on your way down you hit like and subscribe. I'll link out to a couple other anticipated reading playlists that I had from earlier this year, so you can see everything that's caught my eye so far in 2022. I will see you in the next one. I hope you're well. Talk soon. Bye.